Right, I'm going to try to do this all in one take whilst there's police sirens in the background and there's trains driving behind me. First of all, I love the Fujifilm X-T200. It's the camera I'm shooting on now, and I'm not planning to get rid of it anytime soon because it's just such a versatile camera and there's so many things I love about it, most of which I pretty much mentioned in my main review if you guys want to check that out. But I had one big problem with this camera, and first of all, let me give you guys a quick backstory. This time last year, I did a shoot for my friend who plays rugby, and I really enjoyed shooting the sports photography. I thought to myself, you know what, this is something that I could do for the future, you know, something that I could actually do professionally and get paid for. So once I got a little job and I saved up enough money for the Fujifilm 50 to 230mm lens. Now for £250, which is what I paid for it, I wasn't expecting it to be anything special. I mean, look at that f-stop number. But I read the reviews, and the reviews said that it's a pretty amazing lens for the money. You know, it's very sharp, it's got no chromatic aberration, no barrel distortion. That is just an overall, all-around solid lens. And so when I got it, I went here and I took a little wildlife photography shoot. And oh my god, I thought, what did I buy? It is dog slow at autofocusing. Look at this shot. You know, it managed to get this bird in focus for about half a second, and then I just couldn't grab onto it again. And so after I did this little shoot, I went to my friend and I did a sports photography shoot for him, and yeah, I had the same problem. Basically, I've managed to capture this problem on video. Sometimes the camera is almost in focus or in focus, but as soon as you half press the shutter button, half the time it will just snap onto the focus quickly. Other times it will hunt. It will go from infinity to macro to infinity to macro. Why? You're almost in focus. Why do you need to do this hunt? And it's so inconsistent. You never know what you're going to get with it, which is just irritating. Another problem, of course, is it's a slow lens, so I had to shoot on ISO 6400, which was fine for the first shoot that I did. It's a sports one because the sun was setting, so it was actually quite a bright scene. But for the second one, it was an overcast day like this. And, you know, when trying to shoot at like 2000th of a second, 1600th of a second, I actually was underexposing my photos because I couldn't get enough light in. While I ultimately got a lot of shots that I really like, there's a lot of shots that I also missed. This second shoot I did, I missed every single time my friend played. Well, I say I missed. The camera missed the focus every single time he played. And that was heartbreaking. I came to these photos for him and I couldn't even get any pictures of him. Oh yeah, and the final problem that I had with that lens is the fact that sometimes the camera would say that the photo is in focus, I'd take the photo, come back home, photo's not in focus. Which is weird. It seemed to only be at some focal lengths. Anyway, I thought to myself, okay, do I want to spend between £400 to £1,000 getting a better telephoto lens for this camera? And I figured out that the answer is ultimately no. Because the second problem I had when I was doing the sports photography shoot is the buffer. Now, this camera can do 8 FPS continuous shooting, which is just amazing. You can really freeze the action. Problem is, this buffer fills within about 5 seconds and it takes another 5 seconds or so to refresh. Now, I thought to myself, okay, I can just about work around with this with rugby because the players have to reset. But when I was doing the second shoot, I found the camera to not be, you know, between the buffer clearing and the players starting again, I'd still be there waiting. And then, of course, with the slow lens, I'd then have to try to get focus, which would take another second or two. So I was missing a lot of shots. And of course, with a faster lens, yes, I would be able to get faster autofocus. The buffer is still a problem. Now, I thought to myself, maybe it's just that the buffer fills. I think the buffer is about 200 megabytes. Maybe the buffer fills and then it offloads to the SD card. However, I tried it with a slower SD card that I've owned, and the camera would slow down after 20 shots, and it would actually take up to 10 seconds to offload onto the SD card. I think what it is that Fujifilm doesn't have fast enough SD card controllers. It's just fast enough for 4K footage. But then if you have a lot of photos that you've taken at the same time, go from the buffer to the SD card quick enough, which is why you get this annoying processing screen where you can't do anything because you have to wait for the camera to offload. Now with a Canon, for example, what happens is the SD card or the compact flash card, the speed is highly dependent on how many shots you can take before the camera's like, no, I'm too busy, let me offload. So obviously the way Canon and Fujifilm does it is completely different. With something like the 7D Mark II, which I'll get onto in just a second, you can take, with a very fast compact flash card, you can take up to 270 photos or so before the camera's like, enough, let me offload. And that has about a 500 megabyte buffer. So obviously I think it just has a faster SD card controller. Another problem with the Fujifilm is it burns through batteries. This is the case with all mirrorless cameras. If you're trying to use it for sports photography, the battery just dies really quick. You can just about get away with using one battery for about an hour and hour and a half shoot, but you might want to bring 2 batteries with you, 3 batteries just in case. And I found that the aftermarket batteries also seem to discharge when not in use, so you have to make sure before the shoot that all your batteries are charged up, which is a little bit irritating. Oh yeah, so I also forgot to bring up the fact that the Fujifilm, it doesn't have many smart focusing features. So I was shooting on single point autofocus, because if you're trying to shoot on face detection or eye detection, it just grabs whatever face it wants to. It doesn't track onto a single player. So, you know, you'd have someone in mind that you want to shoot, but then the camera would just go off and shoot and focus on someone else instead. While with something like a Canon, it has these like AI servo modes which help you track a player even if they're covered up by another player, you know. So I brought up the 7D. Now I thought to myself, you know what, I think getting a DSLR is just going to be my best choice. And the 7D Mark II looks absolutely fantastic. It's a prosumer camera, it's APS-C just like the Fujifilm. However, you get the advantages of being able to use the full frame lenses, which are obviously the more professional ones. You can also use the EFS lenses, which give you more versatility, they're cheaper, and usually even the cheapest ones have image stabilization, while with the EF ones, because they're big, massive glass, sometimes you don't get image stabilization, you have to pay more for those types of lenses. It was between the 7D Mark II and the 1D Mark IV, the 2 cameras that I was potentially going to get. However, from what I've read, so there was someone asking the exact same question. People just said, basically get the 7D. The 1D is cool if you want to have, you know, this massive body and you want to look professional, but the 7D just has more features. And the 7D Mark II has 10 FPS buffer, which is just mental. And I'm thinking of getting myself I think it's the f4 70 to 200mm lens. I believe I've shown it before at uni. I can't remember because the camera didn't save any lens profiles, but I'm pretty sure this is the lens I shot on, and I loved shooting on it. Autofocus is instant. It is so satisfying to shoot on. I mean, it's a blooming heavy lens. You know, if you're shooting with a full frame camera, which I was at uni, that also adds onto the heft. My arm would be killing me. Another reason why I like the Fujifilm, I can carry this around even with the telephoto lens. With my pinky, it's that light, but of course, you know, you win some, you lose some. So yeah, I think my future is keep the Fujifilm for a little travel camera, a YouTube camera, for getting all those beautiful Fuji colors, but have the 7D Mark II for my professional photographs, which I want to take. It's a big investment. I'm going to have to spend about £1,000 getting myself just a regular, whatever I can get, basically that's the cheapest, and of course getting myself a good telephoto lens, you know, f4 as well, with 2 Digic 6 processors. That means that I'm going to be able to shoot at really high ISOs without having to worry about anything, but I won't even have to worry about shooting at high ISOs because f4 at 200mm, it's going to be great. I'm actually quite excited. It's a lot of money to spend on something that I'm not truly sure if I want to do yet, but I am excited nevertheless. So I'm going to buy this camera, I'm going to take it out on my holiday, which is in a month and a half, and I'm probably going to come back and tell you guys my results of shooting with the 7D Mark II. Anyway, thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.